What's going on, you guys? It's Johnny King with another episode of the Johnny King Show, and I'm psyched to have Ben Higgins here on the show. He and I live in Denver, Colorado, and although you're probably rarely here from what I see on your Instagram, you're in Indiana, you're all over the place.
I'm here a lot more now.
Yeah, well, with
I
COVID.
think, yeah, I've been here a few weeks now, and this is the longest. I think 10 days was the longest I'd been consecutively in Denver in 4 years, and so now I'm way past 10 days here, which has been super great.
Yeah, it's probably nice, isn't it? I mean, that's tough to be living out of your suitcase a
Dude,
little bit.
slows down things. It's been super healthy for me in all ways. So yeah, I'm here. I love to be here. Just, sometimes you just don't get the opportunity to be as, in this place as much as you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, those of you that may don't know, who may not know Ben and his background, you were a participant on The Bachelorette, right? Initially, right? And then you were also The Bachelor a couple of years later, if I remember correctly.
A year later.
A year later.
A couple months later.
A couple of months later. But you've also have you done Paradise?
Nope.
Winter Games? No, you've done Winter Games.
That's
like
it.
that. Right.
That's it.
That's it. It's exciting. And then you just recently got engaged.
Yeah, man. To a great girl, just terrific human from Nashville.
Awesome.
We got engaged in March. So it was March 27th. So it's 5 months ago now, which that's crazy that 5 months ago is when we were in quarantine. Like, that was starting.
Yeah.
And it's flown by.
That's awesome. Well, it seems to be that during the heat of COVID, either relationships or they were either breaking up or they were getting stronger. So it sounds like all that.
Ours is getting stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
That's awesome. And you guys decided to tie the knot. That's really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a great, just a terrific. My counselor yesterday said, "Hey, it feels like you and Jessica's relationship is very peaceful." I was like, "Hey, if my counselor is telling me that, and I feel that, it's got to be true."
Well, that's the one thing I really wanted to talk about since I just kind of feel like, a lot of people watch your life via social media and from afar, but
yeah,
I'm always curious what things look like behind the scenes when the lights and the cameras are off. Like, what does that look like for you? And I feel like, you talk about traveling a ton for 4 years, just being in the limelight, people all being in your business, like mental health. I can only empathize with if I were in your shoes, I'd be like, God damn it, give me some space, or allow me to have my life. Or how has that been for you? Like that, I guess that challenge of the double-edged sword of the good things that come as a result of having been on the show versus the challenges of maybe not privacy as it relates to your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wish I could just you're gonna touch on something. I was on a podcast 2 years ago. I was so pumped for it. One of my role models is a guy named Bob Goff. He's an author, and he had me on his podcast, and he didn't tell me what the topic was. And he gets me on the podcast. He goes, "Time management." It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I was so pumped, so excited to talk to him, and this is something I haven't figured out. Because it is, because the truth of it is, there is so many benefits to it. Like, if you look at it holistically, I've always dreamed of having a seat at the table, of having a place in this world that felt like it mattered, that I was involved in stories. I want to be involved in people's stories. I want to be involved in stories in this world. That's not going to happen unless people are asking things of you and inviting you into things. And so that's a great thing. The problem then, as you said, is when you do that too often, you stop the ability to be present in your moment, because it's always a checklist of the next thing you could be doing. Because there always is something you could be doing.
Right.
And I haven't quite figured it out, because there are seasons where I am flourishing mentally. I feel joy, I feel peace, I feel sadness.
Yeah.
I feel. And then there's other seasons where I am just numb. Just done. Just can't feel a thing either direction, and I'm just a little anxious and stressed and just like panicky.
Right.
So I haven't figured out because there hasn't been like a consistency to it.
You haven't figured out kind of what triggers one or the other.
Or where the breaking point is, like where that trigger is. Yeah, I think I probably have a good idea what triggers it, but how much of the triggering can you have and like deal with until you are triggered? And I think that's kind of like a massive weakness. I mean, I went back to counseling. You said 5 months ago. Jesus, right after my engagement. So that's been 4 months of counseling. That's expensive. But so like because of this, because I didn't know where my triggers existed. I didn't know why one day I would be like waking up energized, excited, joy filled. The next day I could wake up and feel like down and blah and out. I don't know. And so I'm working on it. I don't know how far I've gotten yet.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's if we could ever actually say that we've gotten there. I think it's just like as much of it is physical fitness as it is mental fitness. Like it never ends. You have to keep working on it to stay strong, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys will get married, and who knows if family's in the sights there, but like you start adding in some kids, and then it's like, oh man, life. I just give so much credit to my friends and family who have kids, but then they run businesses, and I'm like, oh my god, like if I struggle by being a bachelor myself, what do you do when you have other mouths to feed and
Yeah.
be present for, But I think that's one of the things that I think I was married previously, and I just didn't get when I was younger, in my late 20s, was like how important that was to be present.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what that meant, really.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, I'm listening to you, but I also know I got to get this stuff done, and I've got this business trip that I've got coming up, and I have to think about the bills, and it's like there's just always things I had to be kind of hustling about, and that really kept me out of that whole idea of planning and time management. Kept me from actually being present with, the woman that I was engaged with, married to at the time, and that had a big impact, obviously, on our longevity. So I think that's something a lot of guys can learn from, and that's why I was kind of curious with you, because I feel like you probably get pulled, I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, so many different directions, that I feel you. It's probably been really nice to actually slow things down, get back to some sorts of routine. And how do you keep up with routine? For me, routine is so important in terms of eating, working out.
Mm-hmm.
We work out at the same gym sometimes, but man, if I don't have that, like I start to go crazy. So how do you find that sense of like routine when you're all over the place traveling and put on you?
I think it's interesting because just what I really love. I worked a desk job for a bit,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't for me. And so what I really started to want to do is save up money to be able to have an investment or a time investment into multiple different things. Like that's exciting for me. It's fun to be a part of a bunch of different projects. And so like, in Denver alone, we have 2 coffee shops and 2 restaurants. I have like a print on demand apparel company that does sweatshirts and t-shirts, and then we have Generous, the coffee company. And so those are all things that I'm actively involved in and managing. And so I say that to say the secret to getting a rhythm at all is bringing in really amazing people who are a lot better than you are to help you with it.
Amen.
And so for me, like I can leave and go work out for an hour and a half in the middle of the day and not really have any doubt that things are going to be better when I'm gone than they were when I was there.
Yeah.
So that's one big thing. The other part is you just, you have to plan time into it. Like in the course of my day, my coordinator makes sure that like there is time that is set aside to even just catch up. Like if I just want to go watch 30 minutes of the golf tournament, Like there's time set aside for me to do that. Because if I miss that, I'm going to be a robot. I'm just moving and checking things off and not really being great at anything.
Mm.
There's a good technique John Eldridge, who's a good old Colorado boy, writes about in his latest book, and he talked about the 1 minute pause. The 1 minute pause is this idea that you can just take 60 seconds at any point in your day, as often as you need to, as soon as you start to feel anxious or distracted or unfocused.
Yeah.
And you just take 60 seconds of nothingness.
Yeah.
And that's been something that my buddies and I are holding ourselves accountable to.
Yeah.
We're doing. The other one is another big good piece of advice that was given to me throughout all of this is if I want to be in a rhythm or be in a routine or be present, is to be where my feet are in every moment. Like it works every time. So when you your mind starts to go off, if you're not in a time where you are supposed to be dreaming and envisioning and thinking, then you need to refocus and be where your feet are. Right now, I'm talking to you. I need to be in this moment. There's nothing else that's on my mind other than what you're saying and where we need to go with this. But those are just two things I've done to keep sane, or at least try to keep sane.
Absolutely. I love John Eldridge, and Wild at Heart is one of my favorite books. I think what I love about it is that it did kind of reawaken me to so much of what I felt like I kind of drifted from, just through the drift of life, and feeling like I was just kind of going through the motions of, like you said, doing that corporate job until life imploded on me as well. And working the 9-to-5 corporate day job wasn't for me either, and having been an entrepreneur now for the last decade, I feel like just living life from a place of where my heart is reawoken to the things that I'm passionate about and fulfilled about. And I do feel like a lot of the conversations that I have with men about their mental health is that they feel like they're just robots, or they're just kind of walking through life asleep. And if anything, then they just use Netflix, video games, gambling, porn, drinking, whatever the case might be, to kind of numb away the pain, right? Have you experienced any of that, whether it be over the last 4 years, just over your lifetime, where you've just really struggled and felt alone and have kind of wondered about wondered about how you just move forward with your life when you're feeling all alone in that sense?
Oh my, yeah, all the time. I mean, I think like my biggest insecurity, or probably my most spoken to insecurity, is that I do feel alone. Like I feel like the kid, the best picture, looking through the window at the party that he wasn't invited into, where all his friends are inside, and he, you're the kid looking through the window being like, I wish I was there. So, and yeah, like I say that, and even then it's like, well, don't feel bad for yourself. But the truth is that's often a battle that I fight when I feel that way, which affects then my relationships and it affects me personally. At the same time, it's in an odd way kept me humble. It's allowed me to never think too highly of myself ever, which has its own issues. But like, the fact that I consistently feel like the outsider looking in allows me then to relate with those who feel that way as well, and to also stay focused on just like my value as a human, and that I don't believe I'm the greatest thing out there. And it's been really nice, actually. It kept this whole process a lot easier. This since the last 4 years, it's kept any attention not allowing my head to get too big or too small.
I think it's pretty cool. My thought then goes to, like, you, to be happy and fulfilled in the life that you live, you probably have gotten really good about defining your healthy boundaries, compared to probably when you first got on the show, and then all of a sudden you probably were just, I imagine, reacting or letting people just tell you where to go. How have you been intentional about setting those healthy boundaries?
Well, one is accountability with friends and family and loved ones. So they help me set those boundaries. They help me see my weaknesses. The next is to set boundaries that are in front of my breaking points. And so, like, if I know that, hey, I'm an introvert, I know I like to be alone. I know that if I have too much time talking to others, I'm going to break just mentally. I won't be my best self. And so setting those up in my own life. The next is making sure that for me, it's really getting contemplative, meditative prayer time without distraction. That's a huge deal for me, is just setting a boundary so I can make sure that I can refocus, regroup, reprocess the day or my spirit, the emotion that I'm going through at some point with what I believe. And that's helpful.
I did a webinar just last week on kind of the importance of that morning, well, kind of bookending your day, morning as well as evening. I feel like it's super important for me to establish my thought before I go to bed, not be reading the news, not watching Netflix, kind of giving some gratitudes and kind of communing with God. But do you specifically set time out each and every single day? Is it part of your morning routine? Is it just something that you feel in terms of just meditating, communing, that sort of thing? Or is that something that's really built into your schedule?
It's not a scheduled thing. It's a very consistent thing. It's like it would be like my medicine in a sense. Like if I start to feel during the course of a day, and there is not a day that goes by that there isn't some type of like anxiousness or concern or worry that enters into my life. As soon as I feel that, my response is to go into it. So that didn't happen right away. That's just kind of like been kind of trained into me to say, okay, I need to reconnect with God in this moment. I need to reevaluate why it is I'm doing what I'm doing. What is the purpose of me sitting down talking to you right now? Like, why am I doing this with my time? And then once I do that, then it helps me see a bigger picture that I want to live for, right? Good examples like at Generous, the whole reason this company exists is that we donated 100% of our profits to organizations that are fighting the good fight on the ground. Well, when I'm reading or auditing our insurance coverage, I am no longer connecting with the mission and the vision of what Generous is doing and why I'm working there. Until then, I take a step back from the auditing of our insurance or our financials and say, I'm doing this because this is a vital part in our mission and vision, and this is a piece of helping us be successful so that we can do what we want to do. I don't do that unless I sit down and I pray and I meditate and I contemplate to refocus myself to know why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I think that's so good. So powerful. And one thing I want, just before we start wrapping things up is, again, you've seen and probably have a lot of buddies that have gone through similar experiences to what you have being on the show.
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge, that you end up seeing some of them that I know you probably really well that are either depicted incorrectly on TV, spun a different way, or they just, they don't handle the pressure. Everyone handles pressure of being in the limelight differently, I'm sure, right? Just as we see athletes rise to the occasion or they choke in moments, and it's too bad that we as a society kind of live and breathe off of that, feed off of that. But have you noticed, at least not so much in your experience, but in the experiences of some of your buddies, just how they have dealt with some of the pressures of being in the limelight and maybe not of having their reputation tarnished? I don't know if that's the right word, but just like, how have you gone about supporting them even as a buddy? Because some guys might be listening to this and be like, yeah, I've got a buddy who's really struggling with alcoholism or porn addiction or gambling addiction. How do you end up supporting a buddy who's really going through the ringer, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think how I would want to do it is I don't know a ton in life, and I've been taught that or learned that often is that my assumptions or my preconceived notions or what I think is true oftentimes isn't unless I'm curious. So typically, I think there's two things I think to being a great friend in the midst of traumatic circumstances would be to be empathetic. I think is probably one of the highest forms of emotional maturity. Is to be empathetic, to meet your friend or your partner where they're at. Meet yourself where they're at, you know, to celebrate when celebration is necessary and to mourn when mourning is necessary.
Mm.
Then after empathy, to be curious, to ask the questions, the whys, the whats, the how comes, like ask questions to then build the picture of what's true. And often through those questions, I mean, I know when I'm hurting my deepest and a friend comes over and just truly doesn't want to give me advice because I don't really need advice. I know I've messed up, but they just want to ask questions to understand. There's a unique, like magical healing that takes place in that moment. And there's a respect given too, where I know he respects me or she respects me because they're asking me questions to learn, to grow an insight. And they're not assuming anything. They're not saying, oh, I bet you did that because of XYZ. No, because you don't know really why I did that. So show empathy and be curious, like insanely curious. I think most people respect that, especially if you're close enough friends to allow you to ask those questions.
Yeah. And I think I struggle with that at times too, just in terms of thinking that I would know something when in truth I don't know what someone, friend or family, has been going through, because no one really knows what you've gone through and what I've gone through and that sort of thing. So you're absolutely right. Empathy is a really, really powerful tool or character trait to nurture. And I think the world would be a different place if more of us expressed more of that empathy on a daily basis.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'd love to hear more about, just some of the things that I see you doing, whether it be Generous Coffee or all just the kind of humanitarian efforts. What are some of the cool things that you're doing that you're really excited about in the world right now?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're at the nonprofit that I'm on the board of. We're getting ready to do a huge campaign in the fall to adopt another community, which
Tell me
the
more about that.
adoption of a community doesn't mean that like we go down as the saviors to like no, what it means is we go down to these communities, we ask them what do they need, what do they want, what do they dream of, and then their answers help us work with them to help them get there. So if their need is jobs for women, because there's 0% employment rate for women in these communities, then we'll go down and we'll help the women find jobs. If it's clean water, we'll build a tank, but then they have to pay whatever they can afford to have access to the water, just to build up some sustainable empowerment and some sustainable change. That's always exciting because you get to see a ton of really exciting progress. So that's coming up, which is a big deal.
That's
At
cool.
Generous, we have 2 coffee shops in Denver. Our online sales right now are just really good. I think COVID is really making people make coffee at home, which is great for us. And like I said earlier, Generous is, I don't make a dime off of it. None of the owners do. We started it with the idea that we could build something that would be an engine for fundraising and doing good in the world. And so we just donate all of our profits to organizations that are fighting good fight on the ground, fighting for people, fighting injustice, which has been awesome. And I do, that is my full-time job. It is what I do when I wake up and until I go to bed at night, with breaks in between.
Yeah.
And the podcast for iHeart's still going really well.
That's awesome.
And the final one really that I'm excited about is My Fan Threads is this print on demand apparel company that my buddy and I started that's gone great. You can go on there and you can buy shirts from small nonprofits or small businesses and support them right now. And they've launched their little apparel lines and they're trying to get their following to buy them so that they can get some revenue to keep open and stay alive and to fundraise. And that's been just a really fun project to be a part of and to navigate through.
What's the website for that?
myfanthreads.com.
Cool.
So yeah, it's been a fun season and like I said, COVID's been great because I've gotten a lot of time just to kind of like be. Yeah. And for me personally, that's been really nice.
Yeah, I bet. Has there been a challenge with COVID for you in any regard? Has it been?
Yeah, we have 2 restaurants here in Denver. I'm sure you have Denver friends that listen. Ashkara up in the Highlands and Mr. Oso. Yeah, COVID was tough on them
Of
for
course.
a long time, but they're recovering. The outdoor seating's helping, and people are getting back, out to eating outside or takeout and delivery. The coffee shop in South Denver is just crushed due to COVID. I mean,
Mm.
just crushed. Golden is fine. It's going to be fine. But South Denver's tough right now. So if anybody's wanting coffee, please stop in and get some coffee down there. It'd mean a lot to us.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
there's been struggles. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't. I think every single thing that I'm involved in at some point here in the last 6 months, we've had to actively evaluate and to have crisis management plans around and start creating levers to pull on how much we could lose before we close the door. Like that stuff sucks.
Yeah.
You're fat and happy and having a great time, and then all of a sudden you're developing a plan to shut down like that. That's scary. I mean, who knows where we're at with it, but we're working, it's every day. We're just making things happen, try to make things happen to stay alive.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of, uh, what are you doing in terms of just because I feel like that's a lot. Obviously, you've got your relationship as well, and your personal health, physical health. How are you just making sure that you keep on top of that? Is it still going back to that practice of?
Well, as you mentioned, we go to the same gym often. So I try to block out an hour a day for some type of exercise. My body can't take, F45 every day of my life. But it can take a few. I still got some energy in me.
You still got it.
Um, so, like a walk or a bike ride or even just sitting out in my yard, getting some sun. I block out some time for that.
Mm,
The next is, like I said, even the 60-second stops to pray, to refocus, to reevaluate.
mm.
And here's my secret, and really nobody knows. Take a 2 o'clock nap to 2:20 every day, and it's great.
That's awesome. Two
Yeah.
to 220, 20-minute power nap in the middle of the day.
Just lay down, close the eyes, and sometimes I fall asleep, sometimes I don't. Most times I do.
Yeah.
Wake up, you're a little groggy for about 5 minutes, but then you're feeling fine.
That's awesome. That's so exciting. Well, I'm just grateful to have learned the tips and excited for you for what's coming with your engagement. And
Thanks, man.
I really do truly mean that. I really appreciate all the good that you do here in the community as well as in the world. And it's just nice to see. Just from the little bit that I've watched the show, I've watched a bunch of different seasons that you weren't on, but you know, Blake and just a bunch of other guys. I'm like, just really good guys that are representing masculinity, manhood in a positive way, and not being a douchebag.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate how you
I'm sure I
show up.
have my moments, but
We all have, right? Yeah,
yeah.
right. It's hard to learn if you're not looking or willing to make mistakes, right? So it's just gonna be tough when it's on a national or world
Yeah,
stage, to make those
definitely.
mistakes. So my heart goes out to you and all the other guys who are and women that are on those type of shows. It's like I said, a double-edged sword. So if they want to learn more about you or connect with you, is it Instagram? Where can they? What's the
Yeah,
best way to
Instagram's
connect?
probably the best way. Higgins.ben or Ben Higgy on Twitter. I still like Twitter a lot. You can follow Generous Coffee as well. That's always good. Um, and that's really probably the easiest way to stay connected in my life and can get involved.
And if they want to donate or get involved in any of the projects you're doing out of the country,
Yeah, you can go to humanityandhopeunited.org. That's
mm,
humanityandhopeunited.org. Come on a trip with us. I'm going down hopefully in April of next year, so you can come on a trip with us, or you can go buy coffee at generouscoffee.com.
there you go.
That would be a huge help. It's specialty grade, so it's the highest graded coffee, single origin, traceable. Um, and it gives back. So why not?
And when you're talking about going down, you're talking about to Haiti or where are you doing?
Honduras.
Honduras. Cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
No.
Amazing. Amazing.
The borders open up again this week, so hopefully the next few months we'll be able to get back down there.
Crazy. Yeah. Crazy life we're all living in this 2020. So thank you for taking some time, hanging out
Hey,
with me,
man.
sharing with everyone. And again, if you're listening and you want to get involved,
Yeah.
connect with Ben. And there's so many different opportunities, whether it be locally here in Denver or around the world, that you can support in so many different ways. So thank you, brother. I really
Hey,
appreciate you.
yeah, hope to see you around, man, and thank you.
Awesome.
See you,
Take care,
buddy.
everyone.